At long last, we have a grand Cathay roster reveal. I haven't been covering the lore drops because I'm no lorebeard. Finally though, with a proper roster reveal, I can apply my expertise and do some way too early multiplayer theory crafting. As always, you can find relevant links in the description, and with that, let's dive straight in. We'll start with the legendary siblings Cold Aloof Miao Ying and Merry Mad Zhao Ming. Both can transform in battle between human and dragon form, and both have mixed lores of magic. Anti-Meow appears to focus more on debuffs and has a mix of life and the new lore of Yin. Crazy Uncle Zhao fuses metal with Yang. Don't worry, we'll get to these new lores in just a minute. While both seem exceptional on paper, potential healing and a better unique lore likely makes Meow the more competitive choice. I am curious to see how the transformation mechanic works though. If you have to be in human form to cast spells, that would require some good timing and management to use effectively, which I would be all for. While all Cathayan lords can't be dragons, they can at least be dragon-blooded. These generic leaders are also potent fighters and casters sans transformations. They can still fly though, on the Jade Longma mount, plus a horse of course. They wield the new lores of Yin and Yang, so let's take a look at those now. Yin is the more esoteric, aka unique lore, as the spells Storm of Shadows, Cloak of Jet, Missile Mirror, I believe this is the one we saw in the Enter World of Cathay trailer, Blossom Wind, Talons of Night, and Ancestral Warriors, which sounds to me like an ethereal summon. I guess we'll have to see. Lore of Yang, on the other hand, is all about buffing allies, disruption, and damage with the spells Jade Shield, Dragon's Breath, Wall of Wind and Fire, Stone Ground Stance, Might of Heaven and Earth, and Constellation of the Dragon. Bit hard to tell what the spells will be just from the names, so I look forward to seeing them in practice. Off the bat though, I'm tempted to say Yin is better with the cool Missile Reflect and a possible high tier summon. Probably way too early to call, but depending on the combination, Anti-Meow could be a terrifyingly good caster. If you want a lord with no casting ability whatsoever, you can take a Lord Magistrate as well. Support focused and hopefully cheap, they can also fly on the awesome Sky Lantern. Remains to be seen how useful these peeps will be. I can't help but feel they'll be overshadowed by the dragons and the casters. Speaking of casters though, Cathay also comes with 2 hero-level spell slingers. The alchemists wield familiar lore of metal, plus have potions for pumping up peers. Only a horse for a mount is about on par for other support-type heroes like the warrior priest. The astromancer, on the other hand, has access to this thing, which is a Wujing Compass. We'll get to this contraption later, but for now, understand that it is a powerful weapon. With such a divine name, they are of course using Lore of Heavens, apparently at an expert level. Based on mount options alone, the Astromancer seems worthy of a bring in most armies. Add the Lore of Heavens on top and you've got great potential. While Lord Metal's awesome and will serve Cathay well, I do feel Uncle Zhao having it cheapens his uniqueness somewhat. It also adds further to the feeling that Meow will be the best choice in multiplayer most of the time, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But that's enough for the aristocracy. What about the regular soldiers of Cathay? Generally, most Cathayan troops fall into 3 tiers: Peasant, Jade, and Celestial Dragon, plus some specialist troops. Peasants make up the numbers of Cathayan armies and are so far the only expendable unit we've seen in Warhammer 3. They come armed as spearmen, bowmen, or light cavalry. Having good low-tier troops to fill out numbers is often a hallmark of competitive multiplayer factions, so these peasants are a welcome addition. Mid-tier Jade Warriors come in 2 melee variants, Sword and Halberd, 2 ranged variants, Shielded and Unshielded Crossbowmen, and the Jade Lancer Cavalry. The melee infantry gain a defensive buff when stationary, giving them charge defense and armor. As to the crossbows, it remains to be seen if they have primary AP like Dark Elves or just good AP like Empire and Dwarfs. Regardless, it does say that crossbows are the ranged backbone of Cathay, even mass-produced, so they should be fantastic. Finally, the cavalry is listed as more defensive than other factions, so something like Empire Knights most likely, with lower charge bonus but higher defense and/or armor. With an appropriately lofty name, the Celestial Dragon troops represent the best of Cathayan soldiery. In melee, they fight with halberds and possibly shields, as pictured here. With expert charge defense, they also use crossbows and shields at range, and all wear heavy armor. You could also consider the Flying Great Longmer Riders cavalry to be of this tier, as they are the most elite mobile melee troops of the Eastern Empire. Most of the rest of Cathay come as gunpowder units. On foot, long-range crane gunners fill a similar role to Warplock Jezzails. I think Ikit actually stole this design for the Jezzails. Iron Hail gunners use blunderbusses to blast enemies up close, hopefully better than zombie pirates. High above in the clouds, Sky Lanterns and Sky Junks rain death and destruction to Cathay's foes below. The Lantern is smaller, with just 4 gunners. We'll see, might come in a unit of 3, like War Wagons. The Junk, though, has rockets and bombs to deal with greater numbers of foes, likely to be a single entity like the Gyro Bomber. While being up in the air gives them a degree of safety, they are apparently quite slow, so in a way, they're quite vulnerable as well. Finally, 2 artillery types round out the gun gang. The creatively named Grand Cannon is a direct-fire, flaming, and armor-piercing artillery, likely in line with other cannon types. The Fire Rain rockets appear to function like the Hellstorms of the Empire, saturating an area with burning pain. Both are pulled by oxen and have more crew members than most artillery, giving them a mobility and survivability advantage. Finally, 2 special single entities finish off this awesome roster. You can't miss the hulking Terracotta Sentinel. This one is obvious. It's a big, terrifying, monstrous beatstick with which to pummel your foes. Absolutely one of the coolest units I've ever seen. My guess is this heavily armored behemoth will be somewhat slow, but pack a powerful punch. As will this thing, which is as awesome as it is strange. The Wujing Compass appears to be a single entity chariot with long-range, extreme damage AoE spells, apparently quite expensive. I absolutely want to see this thing in action. Also makes me yearn for a Celestial Huracanum for the Empire, but that's a topic for another day. With all the units out of the way, let's talk about Cathay's army ability. Ranged and melee units have the yin and yang abilities respectively. They gain buffs while near a unit with the opposite ability. So, for example, a peasant bow and a peasant spear will gain buffs while standing next to each other. This encourages tight formations and good supporting play. Given that Cathay seems generally slow and defensive, good positioning will be critical to their success, as will target priority with the ranged focus. In terms of mobility versus firepower, they seem to fall somewhere in between Empire and Dwarfs, while preserving that combined arms flavor. Lack of any missile cavalry whatsoever is interesting though. I think fast, hard-hitting swarm factions like Greenskins and Beastmen could give them trouble. Their matchups with the other human and the elven factions will likely be very dynamic, as they are all fairly balanced factions. You can outshoot Cathay though, as perhaps dwarfs and maybe wood elves might. You could probably force them into very uncomfortable situations. Those are just like my opinions though, man. So let me know yours in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video or found it useful, drop a like and share. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Vanquish chaos with the sheer power of the dragon! Let them face the majesty of Grand Cathay!